Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
The sly mother-in-law quickly took action to separate her daughter-in-law from her husband. But when the husband, mother, and new wife came to the notary to divide the property, Carmen Tenorio skipped her classes. Her boyfriend was leaving that day. He had been drafted into the army. Carmen was crying, hugging her beloved. Enrique was comforting her. "Carmen, don't worry. Time will fly by. You won't even notice." "Oh, I will notice," Carmen replied, clinging to him even more. The conductor checked the time and called on everyone to take their seats in the carriage. Enrique, leaving Carmen on the platform, hurried to his seat. The other passengers also took their places. The station platform emptied. Only a few people remained, just like Carmen, those who were seeing someone off. Enrique pressed his face to the window and waved from there. The train started moving. Carmen stood on the platform, watching the train rapidly moving away from her. The tears wouldn't stop flowing down her sad face. The weather reflected her mood. Gloomy, windy. It seemed like rain was about to come. After standing there for about 10 minutes, Carmen shivered and slowly walked away. She didn't go to college that day. She went home. Carmen and Enrique had been friends since school. Enrique was in the 9th grade, Carmen in the 8th. At first, they just talked at school, then Enrique started walking Carmen home. When Enrique left after 9th grade to go to a technical school, while Carmen stayed in school until the 11th grade, they began meeting in the evenings. And then, after Carmen finished 11th grade, she entered college, and Enrique, after graduating from the technical school, decided to serve in the army. Both young people found it hard and bitter to part, but Enrique couldn't do otherwise, and so the year-long separation was destined to appear in their lives. Carmen's mother, Rosa, was at home. As usual, she was bustling around the kitchen when Carmen returned. "Why aren't you at college?" Rosa asked her daughter. "I decided to skip today," Carmen replied sadly and lay down on the bed. Rosa set aside her work and sat next to her daughter. "Did you see him off?" she asked Carmen, gently stroking her back. "Yes," Carmen replied and sighed deeply. "Well, don't worry, Carmen, everything will be fine. Rest for now, and then come to eat." With those words, Rosa left her daughter alone. She knew Carmen wouldn't open up right now, but would rather want to be in silence. But there was no time for sadness. Life didn't pause. The next day, Carmen returned to her studies, and the usual daily life continued with its worries, studies, joys, and sadness. Enrique tried to call Carmen twice a week, and those days were the happiest for her. He was stationed in a neighboring region for his training. But the connection was very poor, so they decided to correspond with handwritten letters. The letters took a long time to arrive, but there was something special about them. The anticipation, the smell of paper, rereading the letters over and over, and experiencing strong emotions again and again. His military training was coming to an end, and Enrique was assigned to a remote northern region. "Carmen, the connection might be interrupted for a while, but don't lose track of me." "I'll write, and when I can, I'll call," Enrique said through the static on the phone. "I won't lose you, I'll wait," Carmen replied. That evening, when Carmen came home from college, she found her parents in the kitchen having some serious conversation. By their tense faces, she understood that something serious had happened. "Carmen, we need to talk seriously," Rosa said. Carmen washed her hands and went to the kitchen. "Hi, Mom, Dad," she said. "Hi, Carmen," replied her father Alfredo. "Why do you both look so serious? What's going on?" Carmen glanced from her father to her mother. "Carmen, we have to move," her father replied. "Move? Where to? And why?" The girl was surprised. "Dad's being transferred to a branch in another city. He has to start work there in 2 weeks, and within a month, we'll have to move too. I've already hired a realtor," her mother explained. "But why, Mom? We can stay here. I'm studying, and so is Enrique. We have no contact with him right now. What will we do? Where will we go? Carmen's mind was spinning with questions, and her indignation started to rise. Carmen, what do you mean, we'll stay? First of all, Dad is being transferred 2,000 kilometers away. Secondly, there are universities there, you can transfer, Rosa responded. In a state of confusion, Carmen went to her room. She tried calling Enrique, sending him a message, but all attempts were in vain, there was no connection. No matter how much Carmen resisted, her parents had already begun the move the next week. Alfredo had already left and was living at the new location. Rosa was still sorting out the apartment situation. Carmen had to look into the possibility of transferring to a university in the new city. Luckily, it was possible to transfer with minimal exams to retake. But one thing still troubled Carmen, there was no contact with Enrique. One day, Carmen went to Enrique's parents' house. It was a weekday evening, and they should have been home. But no one opened the door. She rang the bell, knocked, and listened for sounds from inside the apartment. Finally, the neighbor peeked out. "Who are you looking for, dear?" "To the Fortes family?" the curious old lady asked. "Yes." "Hello. Do you know if they've gone somewhere?" Carmen was hoping the neighbor would help. "How could I not know? They've gone to the capital. Their youngest, Ramon, oh, poor thing, got really sick. The local doctors couldn't do anything. And Anatolia, well, she gathered all the documents in a week and they all left together," the neighbor explained. "But what about Enrique?" Carmen whispered. "Well, Enrique has gone off to the army. Maybe when he comes back, Ramon will get better." "Oh, poor little one," the neighbor kept lamenting. Carmen was slowly walking home. A feeling of aching sadness and a bad premonition had taken root in the girl's heart. The day had come when Carmen and her mother had to leave their hometown. Carmen cried. She still hadn't heard from Enrique, but there was no choice, they had to go. The new city greeted them with cold, gray, rainy weather. Carmen was silent, feeling sad and bitter. Rosa was tidying up their new apartment, putting things in their places. She peeked into her daughter's room. Carmen was lying on the bed, her bags and suitcases were still on the floor, unpacked. "Carmen. Come on now, enough moping. Let's get your room in order," said her mother. "I'll do it later, Mom," Carmen replied indifferently. Rosa sat on the edge of the bed and gently stroked Carmen's head. "Why are you so sad?" she asked softly. "Mom, there's no signal for my phone here," Carmen said. "Well, let's go buy new SIM cards, local ones," the woman suggested. "But Mom, Enrique, how will I find him?" Carmen burst into tears. There, sweetheart," Rosa comforted her. A week later, Carmen went to the local university to submit her documents. They accepted them, gave her a student ID, and Carmen began her studies. Her heart still ached, but she had to go on, day by day, week by week. A year passed. Enrique never returned. Carmen, despite her efforts, couldn't get in touch with him either. She made new friends at university and even started to cheer up a bit. Rosa finally breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that her daughter had stopped burying herself in grief. First loves are always intense, of course, but life must go on. The years of Carmen's studies flew by. She graduated with honors and began looking for a job. Not all employers were eager to hire a recent graduate with no experience, but Carmen eventually found a position at a small firm as an assistant economist. She was proud and happy. Every morning she got dressed nicely, did her hair, and went to work in a great mood. 6 months later, Carmen was promoted to economist. She now had her own office and a broader range of responsibilities. She handled the affairs of several partner companies. One of the partners regularly sent a young man named Adriano Montoro to meet with Carmen. He was the deputy head of the economic department at his company. Adriano noticed Carmen almost immediately and soon began to show her signs of attention. Carmen was shy, but she accepted them. Sometimes he brought her chocolates, sometimes a small bouquet of flowers. When Adriano asked Carmen out on a date, she gladly agreed. For their first date, they went to the movies, a new film premiere. After the screening, they sat in a cafe discussing the plot, the characters' actions, their strengths and flaws. Adriano shared what he would have done in the hero's place, and Carmen laughed. They felt comfortable and at ease together. That evening, Adriano walked Carmen home and kissed her. From that night on, they officially started dating. Later, Carmen introduced Adriano to her parents. The meeting was warm and friendly. Then Adriano invited Carmen to meet his family. He lived with his mother, Alisa, and his paternal grandmother, Maria. His father had recently passed away from a progressive illness. They lived in a 2-story brick house in the countryside, with large windows, a gazebo in the yard, and fruit trees in the garden. The house was cozy, each family member had their own room, and there were guest rooms too. A spacious, bright dining room, a well-equipped kitchen, and a luxurious living room with a big couch where the whole family often gathered to watch movies or TV in the evenings. Carmen really liked the house. It felt warm and welcoming. Adriano brought her over just as the family was gathering for lunch. Of course, he had told his mother and grandmother ahead of time. "Hello," Carmen greeted as they entered the living room. "Hello," Adriano's grandmother replied warmly. "Good afternoon," Adriano's mother responded a bit more coolly. "Mom, Grandma, this is Carmen," said Adriano. "Carmen, this is my mom, Alisa, and my grandmother, Maria." "Well, shall we go to the table?" "Time for lunch," suggested the grandmother. Carmen helped the women set the table. During that time, she noticed that Adriano's grandmother seemed more open to getting to know her than his mother. Alisa seemed cold. But maybe it only seemed that way. It was their first time meeting, after all. During the meal, in casual conversation, Maria asked Carmen to call her just Grandma or Grandma Maria, not by her full name. Carmen smiled shyly. Alisa remained distant and a little reserved. She asked general questions about Carmen's parents, her job, and her education. Adriano mentioned that his mother ran her own business. Alisa wrinkled her nose slightly, as if she didn't want to discuss those things with Carmen. She did, in fact, run a small business that brought in a steady income. At some point, Carmen felt like Alisa was evaluating her. Still, Carmen and Adriano continued dating, and 6 months later, he proposed. Carmen, of course, said yes. They invited family and friends to the wedding. It wasn't a huge event, but it was joyful and full of warmth. At the registry office, Rosa couldn't hold back tears. There was her little girl, now a bride, standing beside her soon-to-be husband in a beautiful white dress. She's grown up. A real adult now. Carmen and Adriano began their married life. Adriano insisted they live in the big family house. There was plenty of space, and it made sense. Their parents split the wedding expenses equally, but the very next morning at breakfast, Adriano's mother said, "Have you counted how much you were given in gifts?" "Yes, Mom, of course," Adriano answered quickly. Carmen tensed up, and Alisa continued, "Then let's go figure it out now." "Figure what out?" Carmen didn't understand. "How much you owe me?" "I put my own money into the celebration," her mother-in-law replied in an utterly casual tone. Carmen froze and looked at her husband questioningly. Maria interjected, "Alisa, what are you even thinking? It's always the parents who help organize a wedding. And the gifted money, it belongs to the newlyweds." "Maria, enough. I don't care about traditions and other people's customs. I said the money I invested needs to be returned to me," the mother-in-law declared coldly and firmly. "But my parents contributed too," Carmen said timidly. "That was their voluntary choice. I have no intention of supporting and entertaining grown people at my own expense," Alisa answered just as firmly. "Alisa, come on now," Maria tried to reason with her daughter-in-law, but it was in vain. After breakfast, Carmen and Adriano went upstairs to their room. Adriano took his mother's behavior quite calmly, but Carmen tried to convince him that this wasn't right. "Carmen, come on, that's just how she is," Adriano replied. "But we could have gone to the sea with the money from the gifts." "And now what?" Carmen said, hurt. "Well, now we'll save up. In 6 months we'll take a vacation and go." "Don't get upset," Adriano tried to cheer up his wife. Carmen was upset. But there was nothing she could do. They hadn't received that much money as wedding gifts, and they had to give back more than half. Both had vacation time, and Carmen still dreamed of going somewhere, even if just for a short trip. But now all they could afford was a rented cabin at a countryside resort. Adriano declined even that. So they ended up spending the rest of their vacation in the city. They went to the movies, to the theater, took walks. The vacation days flew by, and work days returned. Carmen got up early in the morning, made a light breakfast for herself and Adriano. Her mother-in-law woke up a bit later but made her own breakfast. Alisa quickly began criticizing Carmen's cooking: too much oil, too spicy, too runny, too dry. So Carmen decided to cook only for herself and Adriano. Her husband liked her meals. He ate them with pleasure. Sometimes, Maria joined them for breakfast, and then Carmen cooked for 3. Unlike her daughter-in-law, Maria loved the omelets and French toast that Carmen skillfully made in the mornings. Carmen and Maria had developed a very warm and friendly bond. Carmen no longer had living grandmothers of her own, and Maria had become like a true grandma to her. Winter was approaching, and Carmen suggested to her husband that they go shopping. She needed new winter boots and a down jacket, and Adriano could use some new clothes too. "Carmen, listen, there's just one thing. I don't have much money right now," Adriano said. "But you got your paycheck a week ago," Carmen said, surprised. "Well, it's just. Mom asked me to help her out. She wanted a new fur coat and didn't have enough. So I pitched in. Now I only have just enough for gas and a few groceries," he said, shocking Carmen. "Adriano, and you couldn't even talk to me about it?" she asked, hurt. "But Carmen, it's my mom," Adriano said, trying to justify himself. "Adriano, we're married now. We're a family. And things like this should be discussed," Carmen said, feeling bitter and hurt. After all, Adriano earned much more than she did. From her salary, she paid part of the utilities and bought groceries. "Well, let's go next paycheck then," Adriano tried to reassure her. Carmen didn't respond but made a mental note to set aside some of her own salary, just in case. A month passed, and it had gotten quite cold. One weekend morning during breakfast, Alisa turned to Adriano. "Adriano, could you take me to the mall today?" she asked. Carmen tensed. "Sure, Mom. Actually, Carmen and I were planning to go too. It's gotten really cold, and we need to get some winter clothes," Adriano replied. "With Carmen?" Alisa raised an eyebrow. "I thought it would just be the two of us. You could help me pick out a new phone. My old one barely works anymore." Carmen joined the conversation. "We're going together today. Like Adriano said, I need clothes too. If you want, you're welcome to join us." Alisa gave her a displeased look. "Adriano, the thing is, I wanted to ask you to give me $20,000. I want a good phone," she said. Carmen was speechless. She stared at Adriano, unable to say a word. "We'll see, Mom," Adriano replied briefly, seeing his wife's reaction. "What is there to see? Let's just finish breakfast and get ready," Alisa declared flatly. "Alisa," Carmen said, "we can't lend you that kind of money. Last month Adriano already gave you money at the expense of his own family. This time, we need clothes for ourselves. We don't have an extra $20,000. "How dare you?" Alisa hissed. "First of all, Missy, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to my son. And before you showed up in our lives, we never used the word lend. All the money in the family was shared. I'm not going to discuss things like this with you. And yet you asked to be reimbursed for the wedding. Your principles seem kind of one-sided, don't they? Carmen responded. Don't speak to me like that. Alisa snapped. Adriano and I will figure this out without you. You have a job, buy your clothes with your own money. And so do you. Carmen didn't back down. That's enough. Alisa stood up sharply and left the table. Then she turned back and said, Adriano, I'll be waiting for you downstairs in half an hour. Adriano said nothing. He was caught between two fires. Afterward, Carmen cleared the table and loaded the dishwasher. Maria hadn't come down to breakfast. She wasn't feeling well. Carmen had left an omelet and her grandmother's favorite croutons, heated some water, made cocoa, and brought it to Maria's room. Carmen, thank you, sweetheart, Maria said gratefully. Oh, it's nothing. Really, it's no trouble at all, Carmen replied with a smile. Just don't be too down. I heard yelling. Did Alisa do something again? Maria asked. Carmen just shrugged uncertainly and gave a sad smile in response. She was always so quarrelsome, such a difficult personality. I don't know what my son saw in her, Maria said. She didn't like anything. There used to be a little house here, and Alisa didn't like it. I lived there first with my husband, and after I buried my dear Matenka, I stayed alone. Then Enrique, my son, decided to build a big house. Before that, he and Alisa lived in a small apartment in the city. It was tight for them, of course. But my Enrique knew what he was doing, and look at the house he built. They all moved in here. Alisa still rents out that apartment. And my son. Enrique, he burned out so fast. The doctors couldn't do anything. And since then, it's been the three of us. Alisa's temper just keeps getting worse with every year. I feel sorry for you, Carmen. I wouldn't wish a mother-in-law like that on anyone. Carmen listened to the elderly woman attentively. She felt deeply sorry for her. She had lost both her husband and her son, and now even her daughter-in-law didn't treat her kindly. After Maria had breakfast, Carmen took the dishes to the kitchen and was about to get dressed to go to the mall when she suddenly heard the sound of a car starting. The young woman ran to the window and saw Adriano driving away with his mother. She rushed outside to call after them, but no one heard her. Carmen slowly climbed back to her room, sat down on the bed, and fell into thought. She didn't feel like crying, though the hurt gnawed at her from the inside. But even more than hurt, there was anger at Adriano and his behavior. 3 hours later, her mother-in-law and husband returned. Alisa was cheerful, animatedly chatting with her son. Carmen met them downstairs in the living room. What's the meaning of this? Carmen asked immediately. Oh, Carmen, what's wrong? Adriano replied as if he didn't understand. Adriano, my son, thank you, chirped Alisa as she disappeared into her room. Why did you leave without me? What is that supposed to mean? Carmen asked her husband. Well, Carmen, we agreed to meet downstairs in half an hour. You didn't come, so I figured. Figured what? Did anyone even think about Grandma? That she wasn't at breakfast? You could have at least asked me, Carmen snapped. Carmen, do you want to go tomorrow instead? Just that, Adriano sighed. What? Again? You gave your mother money for a phone? Carmen clarified. Well, yeah, but the model she wanted is more expensive, and... How much did you give her? Carmen asked quietly. 30, he replied. Adriano. Seriously? Did you even think that we still need to live through the month? Or will your darling mother feed and fuel us too, Adriano? Carmen was at her limit. Well, Carmen, there's your salary too, he tried to reason. Carmen looked at him and couldn't understand what was going on with him. Why was a grown man so under his mother's influence? The next day Carmen went shopping after all and dressed for winter on a budget. She deliberately took a taxi. Her resentment toward her husband was too strong. Even though Adriano had tried to apologize and explain, Carmen didn't want to hear any of it and came back by lunchtime. Maria hadn't come down to the table again, and Carmen grew concerned. "Did anyone check on Grandma?" she asked before lunch. "What for?" "She's at home, so everything's fine," her mother-in-law replied coldly. "But maybe she needs something," Carmen said. She poured a bowl of soup, grabbed 2 slices of bread and a mug of tea, and took the tray upstairs to Maria. The elderly woman had been suffering from a bad headache and numbness in her legs since morning. Carmen fed her, they chatted a little, and then she returned to the table. Adriano and Alisa were still eating. "Carmen, didn't you grab a couple of shirts for me at the store?" Adriano asked. "No," she replied. "Some wife you are," Alisa muttered through clenched teeth. "You were at the store yesterday." "You could have bought some," Carmen said indifferently and began her lunch. After the meal, Carmen and Adriano went upstairs to their room, and Carmen decided to talk to him. "Adriano, what if we lived separately?" she suggested. "No, I don't think there's any need." "There's enough space in the house," Adriano replied. "It's not about the space or the number of rooms." "Don't you see?" Carmen asked him. "Carmen, what is it this time?" Adriano began to protest. "It's that your mother has too much power over you. Don't you see that? We have our own family now. Our own. And it would be better to live apart from our parents, any parents," Carmen said. At that moment, Alisa burst into the room without knocking. "Carmen, are you trying to turn my son against me again?" she said. "I'm not trying anything. I was talking to my husband. And barging in and eavesdropping is, at the very least, rude," Carmen replied. Alisa smirked and left the room. Adriano sighed heavily. "Carmen, I'm sorry, maybe you're right about some things. But why move out?" he said. Carmen sat down on the bed, exhausted. And life continued on in the same rhythm. But from that day, Adriano did start consulting with his wife. Alisa's attitude toward her daughter-in-law remained cold. Grandma Maria, however, grew more and more attached to Carmen. The following summer, the young couple finally managed to go to the sea, and the trip brought them closer together. Away from his mother, Adriano changed. Carmen liked those changes, the sun, the sea, and just the two of them. What more could one ask for? During the day, the couple swam a lot. In the evenings, they strolled around the town, buying little trinkets. Meanwhile, back home, Alisa was talking on the phone with her longtime friend Carolina. "Yes, Carolina, I think we'll definitely arrange that meeting. Don't you worry. This won't last long. I'll take care of it. The only one she really has here is the old hag, but I'll get rid of her soon too. She's been sick for a long time. And once she's gone, that girl won't have any support left in this house." Maria was indeed feeling unwell. Walking had become difficult for her, and Alisa didn't bother to take care of her mother-in-law. When the young couple returned from their seaside vacation, relaxed and tanned, they began handing out gifts and souvenirs. Alisa accepted them with a stone-cold face. Carmen hurried upstairs to bring a gift to Grandma Maria, but the room was empty. Confused, she came back down and asked, "Alisa, where is Grandma Maria?" "Maria went to a sanatorium," Alisa replied indifferently and continued her conversation with her son. "But why?" Carmen pressed on. "Why are you bothering me?" "Because it's better for her there." "She's old and very sick," Alisa responded irritably. "Tell me the address." "I want to visit her tomorrow," Carmen asked. Alisa gave her a contemptuous look. "And who are you to her? A daughter? A granddaughter? You've got too much free time," she muttered. "Adriano," Carmen turned to her husband, Did you know?" she asked softly. Carmen, "Yeah, I knew." "Let's talk about it later," Adriano brushed her off. Carmen saw that Adriano had once again fallen completely under his mother's control. Her heart sank, and she quietly went to her room. Soon, Adriano came in after her. Carmen, come on, why the long face again? Adriano tried to hug his wife. Adriano, why does your mother treat me like this? Carmen asked. Well, Carmen, that's just how she is. Maybe she's jealous of me, I don't know. But she's not that bad, Adriano tried to explain. You knew about Grandma? Carmen asked, looking him directly in the eyes. Adriano looked away and sighed. Yeah, I knew. But Carmen, understand, she's getting care there. It's better for her, he insisted. I want to visit her, Carmen said. All right, Adriano agreed. I'll take you tomorrow, just don't tell Mom. She wouldn't like it. The next day, under the pretense of going shopping, Adriano drove Carmen to visit Maria. The sanatorium turned out to be a basic nursing home. Carmen looked at the drab, worn-down building and felt a pang in her heart. They walked in. The walls, once painted green, were chipped and peeling. The linoleum on the floor was worn through in places. Carmen couldn't believe someone would leave a loved one who needed care in such a dismal place. The staff, however, were kind and welcoming. The director greeted them with a smile, learned whom they came to visit, and called over an aide to escort them. Eva Pilar, the orderly who helped care for Maria, gladly led them to her. Maria is a wonderful woman, she said. But she's very lonely. Depression has taken hold of her, that's not good. Don't abandon her. I get it, life's complicated. Old folks are a burden to most, she added sadly, and Carmen felt a chill. The three entered the room. Maria was lying silently, but when she saw visitors, she smiled. Carmen, my dear girl, how happy I am to see you. The old woman whispered, eyes sparkling. Grandma Maria, how are you? I only just found out. I'd have never allowed this. Carmen sat by her side and hugged her. Oh, Carmen, I don't blame you. You're the only bright soul in that house, Maria replied, tears slipping down her cheeks. Adriano stood at the door the whole time. He didn't even approach his grandmother. Carmen, I'll wait in the car, he said. You're not even going to come say hello, Adriano? Carmen asked, surprised. Adriano sighed, walked over to Maria, patted her hand and asked, Grandma, you okay? Without waiting for a reply, he turned and left the room. Carmen, Maria said, be careful. Alisa is up to something. She didn't send me away from my own home for nothing. She's planning something, she repeated. Carmen felt sick with worry. She wanted to bring Maria home, but she knew her husband and mother-in-law would never allow it. Grandma Maria, I'll visit you as often as I can. Just don't be sad, she whispered. Do you want to go for a walk? Yes, Maria replied softly. Carmen called Eva. Together, they helped Maria into a wheelchair, and Carmen wheeled her outside. Behind the building was a small park with benches shaded by sprawling oak trees. There, Carmen and Maria spent some time together. But eventually, Carmen had to leave. Grandma Maria, do you have your phone with you? Carmen suddenly asked. No, darling. Alisa didn't let me take it, Maria sighed. I'll bring you one tomorrow, I promise, Carmen said, and after hugging her, handed her back into Eva's care and left. Adriano had been waiting and was starting to get nervous. You took forever. We still have to hit the store. God forbid Mom suspects something, he said. Are you so afraid of your mother that you'd abandon your grandmother? Carmen asked. Don't twist things. I'm not afraid of anyone, Adriano snapped. Then what? We have other things to do. Why report everything to her? Carmen replied angrily. They drove off the facility grounds, stopped at the store, bought groceries, and returned home. Alisa was clearly annoyed. You were gone a long time. Did you stop somewhere else? She asked, meeting them in the living room. We had personal errands, Carmen answered coldly and firmly. Well then, Adriano, tomorrow my old friend Carolina is coming for lunch. You remember her, Alisa said. Carmen was already heading up the stairs, but paused to listen. Don't remember, Adriano replied. Well, she also has a daughter, Paula. You used to play together when you were kids, and even as teenagers, his mother explained. Oh, now I remember. Well, great, let her come, Adriano replied. Adriano, they're coming together, so I ask you to be present at lunch, Alisa said firmly. Only Adriano? Carmen asked from the staircase. Alisa looked up and cast a disdainful glance at her. Of course, if you want, you can stay too, but I think you'll find it boring, Alisa said. Adriano, we were planning to visit my parents tomorrow. We haven't seen them since we got back from vacation, Carmen reminded her husband. Adriano sighed heavily, once again caught between two fires. Carmen, well, since this came up, maybe we could go the day after tomorrow, or you could go by yourself, he suggested. All right, Carmen suddenly smiled, I'll take the car and go alone. Alisa then jumped in. The car? What? Public transport no longer exists. My husband and I will decide what does and doesn't exist, Carmen replied and went upstairs to her room. Alisa was about to respond to that cheeky girl, but held herself back. It might even be better if Carmen didn't stay for lunch tomorrow. But Carmen had other plans. The next morning, Carmen got up early, had a quick breakfast, took the car, and left. She first visited her parents and lied to them that Adriano had to go into work for half a day and couldn't come. She didn't want to involve her parents in the arguments and tensions in their home. After spending a little time with her mom and dad, Carmen gave them souvenirs from the seaside and continued on. She stopped at a mobile store, bought a phone and a SIM card, and rushed to see Grandma Maria. At that time, Maria was out in her wheelchair, strolling with Eva. Her legs still wouldn't support her. When Maria spotted Carmen from afar, her face lit up with a smile. Carmen approached her and hugged her. Eva briefly left them alone. Grandma, as I promised, I brought you a phone. Just be careful, make sure Eva knows not to say anything to Alisa if she calls, Carmen said. Oh darling, Eva won't say a word. She's kind, she won't tell anyone. She's seen Alisa and understands everything, Maria replied. After talking a little, Carmen was getting ready to leave when she suddenly paused and spoke quietly. Grandma, I want to tell you something. I'm listening, the old woman said, looking intently into Carmen's eyes. I think I'm pregnant, Carmen said softly, a smile spreading across her face. My sweet girl, what joy! Maria whispered, unable to hold back tears. But it's a secret. No one knows yet, and I'm not even sure. I'll take a test today, Carmen said and hugged her grandma. Saying goodbye, Carmen hurried home. On the way, she stopped at a pharmacy, bought a pregnancy test, and made it back just in time for lunch. Carmen entered the living room and heard voices coming from the dining room. Alisa's voice was floating sweetly through the air. Carmen moved closer and could already make out words and phrases. Paula, it's just so wonderful. You know, Adriano was just talking about you the other day. Right, Adriano? Alisa said to her son. But as far as I remember, Adriano couldn't even recall who Paula was, Carmen said loudly as she entered the dining room. Hello, she added with a smile to the guests who turned to look at her. Carmen walked up to the table and noticed there was no place set for her. Looks like I wasn't expected, but that's no big deal, she said. She went to the kitchen, grabbed a plate and cutlery, sat next to Adriano, helped herself to some salad and poured some juice. Why has everyone gone so quiet? Am I making you nervous? Don't be. I'm Adriano's wife, a member of this family, and there are no secrets from me here. Right, Adriano, she turned to her husband. Well, Carmen, come on now. Adriano mumbled. Carolina was watching Carmen closely, then shifted her gaze to Alisa, who merely shrugged. Weren't you supposed to visit your parents today, Carmen? Alisa asked. I did. As you can see. Or were you not expecting me at lunch? Carmen asked with a smile. Well, how should I put it? Alisa sighed. But I couldn't miss such a lunch. Especially with guests around, Carmen smiled again. There was no more real conversation at the table after that, and soon the guests were preparing to leave. Carmen went up to her room, and Adriano followed. What was that performance, Carmen? He asked his wife. That's what I should be asking you, Adriano. What was your little show? A parade of brides? Behind my back, she fired back. Adriano didn't know how to respond and left the room. Carmen went into the bathroom, took the test, and saw 2 lines. But she didn't even know whether to be happy or upset about this turn of events. Adriano's behavior had once again become heavily influenced by his mother, and Carmen didn't like it at all. The next day, Carmen again raised the issue of moving out with her husband. Adriano found a million vague reasons why they couldn't live separately. Adriano, I'm pregnant, Carmen said. And it's hard for me to live with your mother. Pregnant? When did you find out? Adriano was shocked. Yesterday, after lunch, Carmen answered. That's so unexpected, the man said slowly. Unexpected? We're married. We sleep together and don't use protection. I think it's quite expected, Carmen replied. Adriano became pensive, but Carmen tried to ignore it. That evening, she secretly called Grandma Maria and told her the pregnancy was confirmed. Maria was overjoyed and urged Carmen to take care of herself. Carmen decided to tell her own parents later, in person. The vacation was over, and the couple returned to work. One day, Adriano was sent on a business trip for 3 days to a neighboring city to take care of some matters. That morning, Adriano drove Carmen to work, then returned home to pack. Alisa was home. Adriano, we never got a chance to talk. And your wife ruined everything again. So, what do you think of Paula? Alisa asked her son. Mom, what's the point of this? Adriano asked. He clearly didn't want to talk about it. He didn't like this whole thing with Paula. What do you mean, what's the point? Paula is the daughter of a good friend of mine. We could become family. Carolina could really help the business, you have to understand, that's important, his mother tried to reason with him. Mom, maybe business and personal life should stay separate? Nothing's going to happen with Paula, Adriano replied. And why not? Before that current wife of yours showed up, you two were getting along just fine, Alisa said to her son. What happened? Carmen brainwashed you. But never mind, she won't be around much longer. Mom, I'm telling you, it's not going to happen. Carmen is pregnant, Adriano finally said, and suddenly realized Carmen probably wouldn't want Alisa to know that just yet. What? His mother asked quietly. Mom, it's, well, a secret, I guess. She only found out yesterday. So let's leave it like this, you didn't hear it from me. And take it easy on her, will you? Adriano began to plead with his mother. Adriano, don't you think you've rushed things? This really isn't the best time to have a baby, Alisa suddenly said. What do you mean, Mom? When would be a better time? Adriano was taken aback. Listen to me, son. I've lived a life and I know better than you. Now's not the time. You should talk to Carmen, his mother replied. Don't talk nonsense, Mom. I've got to go. And please, don't pick on Carmen. Remember her condition, Adriano said, then left on his business trip. Alisa watched her son leave and whispered under her breath. I do remember her condition. Then she started calling around, she wanted to get a certain medication. At lunchtime, Carmen managed to slip away from work and took a cab to visit her grandmother Maria. How are you doing here? Carmen asked. Oh, my dear, now that you're here, I feel happy. Otherwise, I just go on living. And you, how are you? Alisa isn't treating you badly, is she? Take care of yourself, sweetie, I beg you, the elderly woman replied. Carmen smiled and told her all sorts of stories, just to cheer her up. The next day, Grandma Maria felt worse, and Eva called Carmen. Maria urgently wanted to see her. Carmen rushed from work and came back to see her grandmother again, but Maria wasn't alone in her room. Meanwhile, Alisa was feeling quite pleased with herself as she prepared dinner. Her son was delayed on his business trip. 2 days without him had passed peacefully. She hadn't argued with her daughter-in-law, and they had only exchanged a few words each day. That evening, Carmen came home from work tired and a little downcast. "Carmen, will you have dinner?" Alisa asked rather routinely. "Yes, sure," Carmen replied. "Tough day at work?" her mother-in-law asked in the same neutral tone. "A bit," Carmen answered. Alisa set the table for two, and the women began to eat dinner. After the meal, Carmen started clearing the table, but Alisa, noticing that Carmen seemed unwell, told her to go rest. And Carmen really wasn't feeling well. As soon as her head touched the pillow, she fell asleep, but she didn't sleep peacefully for long. In the middle of the night, she woke up from a sharp, stabbing pain in her lower abdomen. Carmen groaned. Her husband wasn't there. Her mother-in-law was asleep in her room. The pain was so intense Carmen couldn't even get out of bed. Finally, her scream brought Alisa rushing into the bedroom. "Carmen, what's wrong?" she asked worriedly as she entered the room. "It hurts," Carmen moaned. Alisa called an ambulance. The medics reacted instantly and took Carmen to the gynecology ward. They immediately began running tests. All night, the doctors gave Carmen IVs and injections. Only by morning was she able to sleep for a short while. But she was woken up in the morning by her assigned doctor making rounds. "So, Carmen, how are we feeling?" Dr. Marta asked. "I feel really weak and my stomach hurts," Carmen rasped. "Doctor, what about my baby?" "And now you're concerned about the baby?" the doctor asked in a strange tone. "I don't understand." Carmen tried to sit up in bed. "I don't understand you. First, you take abortion medication at home, then you blame doctors for not being able to give birth," Marta replied. "What medication?" Carmen felt dizzy from the news and lay back down, unable to sit. "Based on your blood work and history, it's obvious. You didn't even register your pregnancy, you just decided to get rid of it," the doctor said. "I didn't take any medication," Carmen whispered, and suddenly the meaning of everything hit her. Tears streamed down her face. "What do you mean you didn't?" "That substance was found in your blood," the doctor said, confused. Carmen broke down crying. "I didn't know. I wanted this baby. I was waiting for them," she sobbed, looking at the doctor. She desperately wished this was all a mistake, that her baby was still alive. "I'm sorry. But how? How did that medication end up in your bloodstream?" Marta didn't understand. Carmen looked at her with tear-streaked eyes. "I was poisoned. She killed my baby," Carmen said. "Oh my God, that's horrible. I thought you had done it yourself. Lie down, you need to gather your strength," the doctor tried to calm her down. "There's no baby?" Carmen asked. "A miscarriage. Someone must have slipped you those pills. What a tragedy. Who could do such a thing? Should we inform the police?" the doctor asked. Carmen was already lying there with a blank, indifferent look. "No need," she said quietly. At lunchtime, Carmen got a call from her husband. "Did your mother know?" Carmen asked immediately. "Carmen, hi, how are you?" "Know what?" Adriano asked his wife. "Did your mother know about the baby?" Carmen asked her husband again in a cold, monotone voice. "Well, yes, I let it slip. It happened accidentally." "I'm sorry, Carmen, but she would have found out anyway." A week later, Adriano rambled. "Your mother killed your baby." "I hate you all," said Carmen and hung up. Adriano tried to call her back, but Carmen wouldn't answer. She no longer had the emotional strength for conversations or sorting things out. Carmen remained in the hospital for a week. She had lost a lot of blood and there were risks of other complications. Adriano rushed back from his business trip as soon as he could and went to see her. Carmen was in a private room, and Adriano was allowed in. "Carmen, what happened?" he asked as he entered. "Why did you come?" she asked indifferently. "What do you mean, why?" "You said that." Adriano couldn't bring himself to repeat her words. "And Mom said you were taken away in an ambulance." "And did your mother tell you why I was taken away?" Carmen turned and looked him directly in the eyes. Adriano looked away. "Carmen, are you blaming her again? Come on, she wouldn't do something like that. Maybe it just wasn't the right time. Maybe we weren't ready, and that's why it happened," Adriano said. "Not the right time? Not ready? Adriano, what are you talking about?" Carmen didn't understand him. "Well, Carmen, Mom thinks so too, not just me," he started to explain but quickly realized he'd said too much. "What does your mom think? Get out. I don't want to see you." Carmen hissed through her teeth. Adriano had no choice but to leave. 2 days later, Carmen tried calling her grandmother Maria. She dialed the number again and again, but Maria didn't answer. Carmen tried again that evening, but still no one picked up. Then, forcing herself, she called her husband. "Adriano, I have one question," said Carmen. "Ask," Adriano replied. "Grandma Maria." "I can't reach her," Carmen said. "We buried Grandma today," Adriano answered coldly and distantly. "And Carmen, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow." "Buried?" Carmen whispered. "But why? Why didn't you tell me?" "Carmen, she wasn't even your real grandmother." "Did you hear what I said about the divorce?" he responded irritably. "Go ahead." "I agree. You're horrible people." "I don't want anything to do with you," said Carmen and hung up. The young woman was overcome with bitterness and pain. The physical pain was nothing compared to the emotional torment. 2 major losses in just a few days. Carmen's heart was in pieces, and nothing could ease the pain that pierced her over and over again. She couldn't stop thinking and tormenting herself. The thoughts came flooding in. In the afternoon, Rosa burst into Carmen's hospital room, clearly distraught. "Carmen, sweetheart, what's going on? Why didn't you call me, my darling?" the woman cried. "Mom, how did you find out?" Carmen asked. "Adriano called me. He was talking strangely." "Carmen, what happened?" Rosa sat on the edge of the bed and gently stroked her daughter's back. "I didn't want to worry you, Mom," Carmen answered softly. "I just found out I was pregnant, and then that night I felt sick in." "Oh, what a tragedy, sweetheart. Why didn't you tell me, my girl? Why?" "You didn't want to worry me. But my heart wasn't at peace anyway. I had a feeling something was wrong." "Mom, we're getting divorced," Carmen said, staring blankly at the ceiling. "Well, maybe it's for the best, Carmen," Rosa said after a short pause. Adriano mumbled something on the phone, but I didn't understand. "Yes, you're right, it'll be better for everyone," Carmen replied and hugged her mom. "When are they discharging you?" Rosa asked. "The doctor said maybe in 5 days, but I feel so miserable here," Carmen said. "Maybe I could leave under a signed waiver?" "Let me talk to your doctor myself and find out everything," Rosa offered. Carmen nodded. While she went to speak with the doctor, Rosa told her daughter to eat properly. She brought mashed potatoes, a chicken cutlet, some treats, yogurts, juices, fruits, all homemade. Carmen started eating hesitantly, but then her appetite returned, and she had a good lunch. Rosa arranged with the doctor for Carmen to have follow-up tests the next morning, and if everything looked good, she could go home. Alisa had invited Carolina and Paula again. "Well, can we discuss approximate dates already?" Carolina asked. "Yes, I think the divorce will be finalized within a month," Adriano replied. "So, Paula, why are you so quiet?" Carolina turned to her daughter. Mom, what do you want me to say? Let the divorce happen first, then we'll talk. But one thing I do want to say, I want the wedding on a yacht. And we should also talk about where we'll live, Paula said haughtily. A yacht, that's a wonderful idea, Alisa chimed in. I think your mom and I, Paula, will pitch in and take care of everything. Of course. I won't spare anything for my daughter, Carolina said. Well, you can live here. There's plenty of space in our house, Alisa said with a smile. Here? With you? Paula grimaced. I actually plan to live separately. Yes, Paula's right, Alisa. It's not proper to live with your mother-in-law after the wedding. You've got a nice house, no one's arguing. It should go to the young couple, they'll need space to start a family, Carolina added. Alisa visibly deflated. Well, everything can be arranged. I might move to my city apartment. In time, Alisa said in response. Paula sighed theatrically and rolled her eyes. We'll wait for the divorce, and then go to the notary, Alisa cooed sweetly, trying to please the guests. I won't leave my new daughter-in-law empty-handed, I'll sign over half the house. Paula noticeably perked up, Carolina straightened her shoulders as well, and the lunch continued on a more positive note. The next day, Carmen was discharged and returned to her parents' home. Her medical leave hadn't been closed yet, so she hadn't gone back to work. 2 days later, Adriano called and asked her to be at the civil registry office at a certain time. Carmen showed up, and they both filed a mutual petition for divorce. If it's not too much trouble, could you pack my things? I'll come by in the evening to pick them up, Carmen asked Adriano. I don't want to see your mother. All right. Your things will be by the door at 8, Adriano replied and quickly left. That evening, Alfredo drove his daughter to her former husband's house. Carmen went inside to collect her suitcases and heard voices from the living room. Clearly, something was being discussed. Adriano came out to her, looking cheerful. Oh, you're punctual, he said to Carmen with a smile. Right then, Paula appeared from the living room. She gave Carmen a condescending look and said, So you said Adriano didn't remember me, right? Well, now you know, he'll forget you very quickly, and this whole house will act like you never existed. Carmen looked at Paula with disgust and replied, We'll see whom this house remembers and whom it forgets, and grabbing her suitcase by the handle, she left. Her father helped load the suitcase into the trunk, and they drove away. For the following days, Carmen hardly left her room. She needed time to think everything through. Rosa didn't bother her unnecessarily, knowing her daughter was already going through enough. A month later, Carmen and Adriano were officially divorced. Even Carmen hadn't expected to feel such relief when she picked up the divorce certificate. No regret, no sadness, no longing, no anxiety, only relief, as if a concrete slab had been lifted from her shoulders. She even felt like celebrating a little, so she decided to stop by a cafe right after leaving the registry office. On the steps of the building, Adriano called out to her. So, what are you going to do now? Just, don't hold a grudge, all right? And please, don't call me. I'm getting remarried soon, he said with an overly self-important tone. Carmen simply laughed. Adriano's eyes widened as he looked around for what she could be laughing at. Realizing he himself was the joke, his face turned crimson and he rushed off. Carmen straightened her shoulders, shook her head, and with a confident stride, stepped into a new chapter of her life. She truly did go to a cafe, ordered her favorite vanilla latte and cherry cheesecake. When she returned home, she felt like a new person. Her parents quietly rejoiced for her. The divorce hadn't plunged her into depression, on the contrary, she had come back to life. A month later, Adriano married Paula. They all continued living in the same house. From the second week on, Paula began asserting herself and making it clear she hadn't signed up to live with her mother-in-law. Alisa tried to delay the inevitable, unwilling to move to a city apartment after so many years in the spacious family home. But the pressure didn't just come from Paula, Carolina also began to push. At the time, Alisa's business was in dire need of outside help, and only Carolina could provide it. Carolina constantly reminded Alisa of her promise to transfer part of the house to her daughter-in-law, so Alisa went to a notary to draw up the paperwork. The notary collected the necessary documents and told her to return in a month. Meanwhile, Carmen continued her regular life, but only she knew she was waiting for something. And that something was about to happen. The call from the notary office came sooner than expected. Alisa, Adriano, Paula, and Carolina were seated in the notary's office. The room was silent. Everyone awaited the official statement that Alisa and Adriano were the rightful heirs to Maria's house. The grandmother had no other relatives. But the notary didn't rush. Suddenly, a knock came at the door, and Carmen entered the room. "Carmen, daughter of Alfredo, we've been expecting you." "Please, have a seat," the notary said. "What is she doing here?" Paula wrinkled her nose. "Dear Ignacio," Adriano addressed the notary, "we've been divorced from this person for a while. She's not part of our family. There must be a mistake." "Mistakes don't happen in this office, Adriano, believe me," the notary replied calmly. "Is this some kind of joke?" Alisa joined in indignantly. Carolina sat silently, watching the scene unfold with a sly grin. "Well then," Ignacio began, "Alisa and Adriano, today you've come with your family members to hear the will of the late Maria. After reviewing all the documents, I inform you of the following. Maria, in the presence of a notary and a psychiatrist, who officially confirmed she was of sound mind and memory, and also in the presence of Carmen, signed a deed gifting the house at 25 Industrial Street to Carmen. Therefore, before her death, the house legally became Carmen's property. Accordingly, dear guests, there is nothing left for you to inherit." A heavy silence fell over the room. Moments later, Carolina burst out laughing, while Alisa gasped for air, struggling to speak as if the words were stuck in her throat. Paula stared around at everyone in shock. Carmen stood up, thanked Ignacio, and said, "Dear guests, in the presence of the respected Ignacio, I kindly ask you to vacate my home within a month. Please don't make me take legal action. You have no rights there. You won't get a single square meter." Alisa suddenly screamed. Adriano clutched his head in disbelief. Carmen gave the notary a respectful nod and, with her head held high, left the office to the sound of Alisa's screams and Carolina's laughter. Carmen returned to her parents' house. She didn't yet tell them about the house. Lately, she'd noticed her mother had started behaving a little oddly. But Rosa remained silent about whatever was bothering her. She had decided to return to work. Before becoming a homemaker, she had worked as a nurse. Rosa updated her certification by completing a refresher course and got a job again, but even after starting work, her constant worry was plain as day. Alisa, Carolina, Adriano, and Paula returned home. "Alisa, what nonsense was that? What kind of performance did we just witness?" Carolina asked. "I don't know. It's impossible. Maria died in a retirement home for the elderly. That girl didn't even know where she was." Alisa fumed. "She knew, Mom," Adriano said quietly. "What?" Alisa hissed in reply. "She really asked, and I took her to visit her grandmother. The grandmother was happy, and I think she visited her again afterward," Adriano mumbled. "You're an idiot," Alisa screamed. Look at what you've done now. You lost an entire house. That old woman is no fool, she didn't even leave anyone a share. This house was nearly built from scratch by my husband, and this brazen old woman, may she rot, registered everything in her name. Well, grandson, here's a gift from your grandmother. Mom, maybe we can challenge it in court? Adriano suggested. They told you, in the presence of a psychiatrist and a notary. You have zero chance. Even if you fight, where will Adriano and Paula live in the meantime? Carolina intervened in the hysteria. Well, we still have the city apartment, Alisa replied quietly. It's a 2-room Khrushchevka. I'll tell the tenants to move out. Paula nervously laughed. I'm not going to that dump. Let me go, she said. Alisa, we're leaving for now, but if you don't solve your problems within a month, the marriage will be dissolved, and I'll suspend my investments in your business, Carolina said to her friend, then called Paula and left. Alisa and her son stayed in the house. Adriano went to his room. Alisa sat down on the couch in the living room and pondered. A month later, Alisa and Adriano had to vacate the house. Carmen came for the keys. She wasn't planning to live there, but it was important for her to finish this matter. Alisa and her son had to move to the old city apartment. This did not have a positive effect on their emotional state. On top of everything, Alisa's business was falling apart. When Carmen took the keys and set the house's alarm, she suddenly called out to Adriano, who was leaving. "Don't be sad, Adriano, and don't call me." "What? What does that mean?" Alisa asked her son. "Nothing," Adriano grumbled, and they left. Carmen decided to take a walk. She had long inherited her mother's anxiety, but her parents stubbornly kept silent, and on that day, Carmen decided to get to the bottom of everything. In the evening, during dinner, the family had a calm conversation, but Carmen once again saw that mysterious anxiety. She put down her fork. "Mom, Dad, are you hiding something from me?" she asked her parents. Alfredo sighed and looked at his wife. Rosa flinched and suddenly started crying. "Rosa, what are you doing?" Alfredo said. "I'm listening," Carmen said again. "Carmen, we didn't want to tell you, we didn't want to worry you. There have already been so many problems in the family, with the child, but everything turned out worse than we thought," Rosa began. "Mom, what happened?" Carmen's heart was pounding. "Your father has problems. We thought our doctors could help him, but here, they just shrugged. I sent a request to the capital, but they refused there too. They don't deal with cases like his," Rosa explained. "Dad," Carmen whispered. Alfredo put his hand on his wife's and looked at her with love. "Rosa, why are you crying?" he comforted her. "And what's next?" Carmen whispered. "I found out that these cases are treated in Germany, but the cost is unaffordable for us, even if we work 24 hours a day." Rosa couldn't stop crying. "How much money do you need?" Carmen asked quietly. "About 4 million, her father answered quietly. "Mom, submit the request and gather the documents." "Dad will live," Carmen said firmly. "Carmen, what are you talking about?" Rosa didn't understand. "Simple. We'll sell this apartment," the daughter replied. "Carmen, this is our only home," Alfredo said. "Where will we live?" "We'll have somewhere to live, Mom. Call the realtor tomorrow, and I'll find a moving service." "We'll sell the apartment and move," the daughter declared firmly. Alfredo and Rosa exchanged glances and looked questioningly at Carmen. "The house where I lived with my husband." "Well, you know that Alisa sent Grandma Maria to a nursing home. I couldn't leave her there alone. I used to visit her. One day, she called me and asked me to come at a certain time. I couldn't not go. And she, well, Grandma Maria, gave me the house. Today, Alisa and Adriano left it. It's empty. My house. I didn't know what to do with it and didn't want to accept the deed, but Grandma Maria said back then that you shouldn't refuse gifts and that life always shows the right path. I guess this is our path. We'll move into the house, sell the apartment, and Dad will get better." Rosa couldn't hold back her tears again, and even Alfredo cried. In the next week, Carmen organized the move. Rosa hired a realtor and started gathering documents for her husband. Alfredo continued to work while the apartment was sold in 2 weeks. The family was settling into the new house. Everything was new for them, and they received an invitation for hospitalization. Rosa and Alfredo began to arrange visas for entry into the country. Carmen helped her parents with money transfers. The departure of Rosa and Alfredo was very emotional. Carmen took her parents to the airport in her father's car, then returned to work. But all this time, she couldn't find peace. Alfredo was immediately hospitalized, and they began retaking all the tests and conducting examinations. Soon, he was scheduled for surgery. That day, Carmen took time off work and checked her phone every minute. She and her mom communicated through a messenger. The hours passed incredibly slowly. Carmen paced around the house, while Rosa walked the hospital corridor. Both women were shaking because the life of their most precious person, father and husband, was in the hands of the doctors. 5 hours passed. The doctor came out of the operating room and told Rosa that the surgery had been successful, but a long rehabilitation period would be required. It had been prepaid by the family. Rosa burst into tears, and with trembling hands, she opened the messenger on her phone and, unable to steady her shaking hands, sent her daughter a voice message. "Everything went well, Dad will live." Carmen also cried. With these tears, the young woman released not only the accumulated anxiety and worry about her father, but also the resentment, pain, and disappointment she had experienced recently. 3 weeks later, Rosa and Alfredo returned home. Father was still weak, and the pale skin showed the long stay in the hospital. The man was still prescribed a light regimen, so Carmen immediately took her parents home. Lunch was ready at home. Carmen set the table, and the whole family sat down to eat. They shared the feelings and emotions they had experienced during these days. But now the whole family was together, and they had managed to overcome this difficult period in their lives. Soon Rosa returned to work. Alfredo was still recovering at home. Life in the private house was beneficial for them all. During the day, Alfredo could rest in the fresh air, which had a very positive effect on his health. His wife and daughter surrounded him with love and care. And after a month, Alfredo was almost fully recovered, and 2 months later, he returned to his work. Alisa nagged her son every day and blamed him for everything. "Fool! How could you? Why did you take that awful girl to see your grandmother? Look at what you've achieved now. She stripped us clean. We've lost the house, I've lost my business. Now Carolina won't miss the chance to spread rumors about me." "But Mom, you two are supposed to be friends," Adriano replied. "Oh, friends. Do you believe in friendship in this day and age? Do you still believe in love? Where's your Paula now? No house, no money, no friendship, and no love." Alisa screamed at her son. Every day there were scandals in Adriano's apartment. He couldn't stand it anymore. He became frustrated, left the house, and spent his evenings at the bar with a pint of beer. He would return well past midnight and had a harder time getting up for work in the morning. After yet another argument, Adriano stayed out the entire night and only came home in the early morning. The apartment was quiet. Alisa was supposed to be asleep. Adriano quietly went to the bathroom, took a shower, as it was Saturday, and planned to sleep off the night's partying. After showering, Adriano collapsed on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. He woke up closer to noon. The apartment was still quiet. Adriano walked to the kitchen. The kitchen was clean and empty, as if no one had had breakfast that morning. Adriano grew suspicious, peeked into his mother's room, and saw Alisa lying in bed, breathing heavily, her eyes full of terror. He rushed to his mother, tried to shake her, but she couldn't move a limb or speak a word. Her lips twisted in what seemed like a distorted smile. Adriano immediately called an ambulance, and Alisa was taken to the hospital. Later, Adriano was told that she had suffered a stroke. She spent some time in the hospital, but Adriano had found her too late, and her condition was very severe. The doctors saved her life, but unfortunately, they couldn't restore her usual functions. Adriano was advised to seek rehabilitation centers, massage therapists, and private rehabilitation specialists. The doctors explained the basic principles of caring for someone who had suffered a stroke, but Adriano only half listened. He realized he was in deep trouble and couldn't balance work and caring for his bedridden mother. He tried to make arrangements with the doctors to keep Alisa in the hospital for at least another month, but they refused, and Adriano had no choice but to bring his mother home. Now, every morning before work, Adriano had to move his mother into a wheelchair, wash her, feed her, open the windows on warm days, turn on the TV, and leave for work. He had to come back during lunch to care for her again. In the evening, he would take her for a walk near the entrance of the building. His patience lasted exactly 2 weeks. Alisa couldn't speak, she could only moan. Adriano packed up all of his mother's belongings, made arrangements with a nursing home, paid for her stay, and took her there. "Mom, don't be mad, but I can't do this. You'll be better there, they'll take care of you, and I'll visit you," he said, bidding her farewell. Tears welled up in Alisa's eyes. Adriano looked away. On that weekend, Carmen was having breakfast with her parents. Finally, they were able to breathe a sigh of relief. The trials and troubles were behind them, but Carmen still felt somewhat melancholic. "This city has brought us a lot of trials," she said. "It's not about the city, Carmen, it's about life." "It would have caught up with us anywhere in the world," her father replied. "I don't know, maybe you're right, Dad," Carmen said. "Why are you bringing this up?" her mother asked. "Our company is opening a branch in our hometown, and I was thinking, what if?" Carmen was trying to find the right words. "You want to go back?" her mother asked. "I don't know, Mom, but something just feels uneasy, like a premonition," Carmen answered. "I wouldn't rush it. Think about it for another week or two," her father advised. "Yeah, you're right, Dad, I'll think it over," Carmen replied. The new workweek began. Carmen wasn't pressured to make a decision at work, and she took her time thinking about it. During dinner, the whole family gathered again. This time, Rosa was a bit nervous. "Mom, is something wrong?" Carmen asked. "Well, how should I put it, dear?" Rosa sighed, and Alfredo looked at his wife with interest. "Today, a woman named Anatolia came to our lab with her son Ramon to give some tests," Rosa said. Carmen froze in shock. "Anatolia," she whispered. "Yes, Carmen, and her son Ramon. Is that the brother of that guy?" Rosa looked at her daughter. And suddenly, Carmen choked back a sob. "Yes, Mom, that's Enrique's brother, but how? Are they here too?" she whispered. "Apparently so. I took her number, though I shouldn't have, but something told me to do it," Rosa said. "So many years have passed, I don't even know if it matters. What if he's married? What if he has a family and kids? And here I am," Carmen pondered. "And what if not?" her father asked quietly. Carmen looked at him, her eyes full of tears. "I don't know what to do," she said in a trembling voice. "It's up to you," her father said with a smile. Rosa handed her daughter the piece of paper with Anatolia's number. Carmen went to her room, pacing back and forth, thinking. In her mind, she played out at least 10 different scenarios of conversations. Still, her hands and voice trembled. She picked up the phone, dialed the number, pressed the end call button, frustrated with herself. On one hand, she wanted to preserve her first love in her memory, but on the other hand, what if there was a chance to meet him again? But so many years had passed. Carmen sighed, dialed the number again, held the receiver to her ear. A beep. Then a second one. "Hello," a stern female voice answered. Carmen swallowed. "Anatolia?" she asked. "Yes, I'm listening," the woman replied. "Hello. Sorry to bother you, but may I speak with Enrique?" Carmen asked, gathering her courage. "Yes, one moment," Anatolia replied, hesitating slightly. Carmen heard footsteps, some faint sounds, a crackle, and then his voice. "Hello, I'm listening." "Enrique?" Carmen said softly. "Yes, who is this?" the man asked in surprise. "It's Carmen." The young woman's voice trembled and was very quiet, slightly hoarse. "Carmen? Is this not a joke? Carmen, is it really you?" Enrique's voice cracked. "It's me," Carmen replied, and then broke into sobs. "Carmen, how? How did you find the number? My God, Carmen, where are you? In which city? Can we meet?" Enrique was in shock from the sudden call from the past and couldn't find the right words. Yes, we can meet," Carmen said, and that same evening, she hurried to the park where they had agreed to meet. Carmen impatiently paced back and forth, noticing a car pull up to the parking lot, and a young man stepped out. He hesitated slightly and walked toward the fountain, and Carmen recognized him. She moved toward him. Enrique saw her too. They met and looked into each other's eyes. Then Enrique pulled her close. He hugged her tightly as though he feared she might disappear at any moment. Then a long kiss followed, and Carmen's head spun. They sat down on a bench in the shade of a maple alley and couldn't stop talking to each other. "Where did you disappear to back then?" "I couldn't find you, and your parents left," Carmen said. "After the training, they sent me to a distant region. There were problems on the way. They changed our route several times, and then I lost my phone and my parents. Ramon was very sick, so they went to another city with him. I don't know what happened. It was a stupid series of events. But I couldn't find you after that," Enrique replied. "My dad got transferred for work to this city, so we moved too. And, of course, there was no reception here, and I waited for you, but I never heard from you," Carmen said softly. "Are you alone now?" Enrique asked cautiously. "I was married, but my ex-husband and mother-in-law turned out to be despicable people, and I got a divorce. I erased them from my life," Carmen answered. "Carmen, I should have said this back then, but I'm saying it now. Will you marry me?" Enrique suddenly asked, looking into the eyes of his first love. "Yes," Carmen replied. And 2 months later, Carmen and Enrique got married. Their parents were happy to see the couple reunited. The wedding was modest, with only the closest family attending. Carmen persuaded Enrique to live in their large house. Alisa continued to live in the nursing home, where she received the necessary care. Adriano, however, visited her less and less. He found it more and more difficult even to think about that dreary place with its shabby walls and creaky floors. But at night, he increasingly dreamt of his grandmother Maria, who seemed to be shouting something at him, though he could never make out the words. As a result, Adriano began to drink more and more, losing himself completely. A year after the wedding, Carmen and Enrique had a daughter, and their home was filled with the sounds of laughter, the patter of little feet, and immense happiness. On weekends, Enrique's parents and brother would visit. They would have warm family evenings, where they cherished and loved every member of their large family.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.